Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 14 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome back author TJ London. She's been a guest on the show several times, and for good reason. TJ is an incredible and talented and brilliant writer. Since she's no stranger to the podcast, we're going to be skipping the usual get to know our guest segments. But don't worry, I'm going to be including the links to all her previous appearances in the show notes and on our website so you guys can go check them out. Welcome back, TJ.
Hello, Enchantress. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited about our chat today because you have some really cool, fun stuff that you've been kind of like inkling here, hinting over there. You did share. So today we're going to be diving straight into it. And you have something major happening in the Rebels and Redcoat saga. So tell us about that. Tell us.
Well, it's so normally I'm a lot more louder on social media. If that's a thing, right? Like, because everybody's loud these days on social media, but I've kind of been quiet because I've been hunkered down in the Rebel fort, like really focused on this. So I made a decision, and we'll explain the decision when we get there, I'm sure. But to reboot the first two books, like physically revamp the actual like sight reader books. So the Tory and the Traitor, the beginning of the Rebels and Redcoat saga. And then naturally, when you go ahead and you do that with your physical books, you got to do it with the audio, right? Because it's a thing. So then I am also rebooting the audios too as well. It's a lot of work because each of those books is like 600 pages. So another reason, and then I have like a real hustle, right? Like that's a thing too. So I'm trying to do that on top of, and that's not being an author is not a real hustle. I want to put that out there. But it's my other real hustle. Let me put it that way. So I've got that going on too. So yes, I've rewritten them and now we're re-audioing them or re-recording them or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, it's fascinating because in the world that we live in with books and stuff, and it's a skill set from a writer's perspective. And as the more you do it, the better you get at it. Again, with any skill. And the Toy was your first book, and I know that you shared with us in your newsletter and even on socials. But there was a reason also too why you wanted to kind of go back and revamp and reboot the series, especially starting with the Tory. So tell us about that.
So, okay. I mean, I have to go way back to the beginning when I wrote them. Originally, the books were not intended to ever actually be books. When I first wrote them, they were part of a counseling tool, as I've always been very clear about. And the Tory and the Traitor were all one book, right? So then I eventually, through a process of things that I've talked about in the past, ultimately published them. But, I was new. So there were a lot of things I didn't know. One, I wanted to see if I could pick up an agent or pick up a publisher. So there were a lot of things I tried to more, I don't want to say adjust to the market because that's not a fair statement, but make more desirable for the market. The size of the book, some of the content in the story. I took a lot of recommendations on what I should do here. Also, I had potentially a different editing staff that I worked with at the time, as well as my skill set was just different, right? Like I wish we all came fully formed, brilliant authors and fully formed, brilliant pharmacists, like in my real job, but we don't, right? Like we get better as we go. So when I wrote The Tory and the Traitor and I eventually put them out, there was like, okay, I'm never doing this again. Well, then people want to know what happened. And then it became the Turncoat and the Man of War and then the Rebel and then everything else. But I also write a saga, right? So if you're going to ongoing tell a story, you really need the table to be set well at the beginning. Not that the original version I felt it wasn't good or it's strong at all. That's not the case. But now that I have more skill set and I've got more story base and I made the decision to be an independent author, I wanted to go back and put those pieces that were missing out of the story or I had removed for the market or for the size of the book and focus in and put them back and give the reader the original experience. That's how I originally wrote it. Also now it's more updated, right? With my style of writing, the more that I've learned, you gain my skill set as a listener and a reader, right? But also I have a different editing staff. I have a different proofing staff. So a lot of things will, hopefully improve. Not that they weren't great as they were, but also get better in quality. And then you get more story, right? The story has gone from what was originally like about 148,000 words to 202. So, I mean, it went from like about a 400 page book into like now a 600 page book, right? So all that much more storyline and John Carlyle and bad behavior and all the things we now have, right? And then when I went into the trader, it was kind of a step further. Okay, now that I made these expansions, right, I have to fill back in these pieces, these gaps here, and bring things together so they match nicely. So because the trader runs alongside the rebel, right? So we need to like open up that story because the rebel was actually never meant to be written. So that's kind of where it all kind of came from. But essentially, the goal was also to give my current beloved readers and my previous readers the chance to go, okay, I love this story. I don't want to see it be changed that much, but I want to see what she did with it. Like, where did she take this? How much bigger did it get? And for my new readers to go, okay, this is interesting. This is good. I want to keep reading, right?
Yeah.
So that was the thought process, and also because I have 2 more books already in process writing. So before I felt like those could come out and go and be complete in the direction they needed to go, I needed to stop for a minute, backtrack, do what I needed to do here so we could move forward. So that's the story. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
I know that when you first told me, I was like, the covers are not changing, right? Because those covers are good as they are. And you're like, no, those are going to stay the way they are. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no. Inside the book, it will say second edition on the Tory. Inside the trader cover will actually say third edition on that. Inside the turncoat will say second edition as it does, but no, I am those covers are very special to me. As I've talked about many times in the past, we shot those myself. I work with a company named Debanza to make the original covers. And I'm very affectionately love those covers. So no, they're not going to change.
Yeah,
so
I was very happy to hear that. Because usually we live in a world where many times the cover gets an update. And that's it, right? Or if there's a slight change, they may update also the cover because of that. From if the book was older and things like that. And sometimes we're going, but we like the cover the way it was, or it matches all my other books in the series, and now I have to start all over again. Gee darn! But in your case, at least from that perspective, the covers are so damn good. I didn't want them to change.
Thank you. Well, and here's the thing too. I mean, first of all, I have to get Brian to come back and shoot that cover with me because like nobody else can be John Carlyle on the cover. That's the first thing. But second of all, I feel very strongly about my covers. They're kind of retro in terms of covers these days, the headless hero, as they call it. But also, in full disclosure, I love the more like artistic, cartoony looking covers that people have. They just don't suit my work. They don't suit what I want my image. I mean, for people who know me, I'm an extreme control freak about like how I present my branding and my individual look that I prefer. So I don't know that I could find anything that I would fall in love with as much as these particular covers. So they were kind of love at first sight when I created them. So it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So that's of the mindset. Now, interestingly enough, though, Man of War and the Rebel cover, I did not shoot those. Those were done by Demanza, and they really followed in the spirit of my original covers. But when it comes to a John Carlyle cover, I'm so much of a control freak that we do those myself. So
yeah, I would have to ask your friend to come back for any other books that come out.
He's still beautiful. He still looks fabulous in the suit, and he's a ham too. He loved every minute of it. He put it on his resume.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah,
which is great because he's a scientist, right? And he's on LinkedIn as a scientist. By the way, cover model on historical fiction romance book, right? And he loved every minute of this. And the funny thing is he has 6 kids and they're older. They're like in their teens. So they're all like, Dad, oh my God, were you really on a cover of a book? So And he tells everybody, yes, I was.
I love that. I so love that. That's, I mean, definitely one of those where I'm like, field trip, gonna end up heading your neck of the woods and do a bunch
And
of
he'd love
photos
every
of the
minute
photo
of it.
ship. Yeah.
The thing is, I keep trying to get him to come to like a signing in Michigan when I have one, and we can never get our schedules to align. But the guy, if you knew him, like seriously, he'd show up in the whole garb and he'd be like, yeah, hi, everybody. He'd talk to
I'd love
everybody and
that.
love every minute of it.
Oh,
So
that'd be fantastic. That's also like fun and entertaining, but so also in the whole realm of the books, right? We love having that kind of environment around us where we love the stories and people are giving us the info, but also being able to see it, because I've been to a few photo shoots for book covers, whether they're having and stuff like that, and seeing it being done and then seeing what the photo looks like, but then seeing the final edit. And then also when a cover designer gets it and makes it into a book cover, that entire process is just utterly greatly fantastic. It's just one of those to kind of see everything. And I can imagine what it would be like to be the author of said photo shoot for that, you know, for them to see that. And in your case, you were in it, girl.
that's me in the background, actually. You know, it's funny because I in my family, I'm not the artistic one. Like I have a sister who is an incredible like painter, drawer, like stained glass. My oldest sister is so incredibly gifted at music and different things. I mean, I was good at music, but my sister is really gifted. And I never like thought of myself as being like very artistically talented. I'm kind of the scientist of the family. And I'm very much a scientist in my writing technique, but I was incredibly artistic in my vision with the covers. And what I actually, and this is me giving myself credit, which is something like, you know, I occasionally, I mean, like I'm not one of those people that likes to take a lot of credit in places, but this was one of those places where I actually will say that it was my vision, but a lot of it also was, I'm incredibly inspired by this character. And I often say, you know, I met, I don't know if you know, do you know Shelby? She's I see her at all the different different book
Shelby.
events.
I love Shelby.
Yes.
I love her.
Okay. And I met her the first time I met her. She was like, you know, is your muse by any chance? And mind you, we did not know each other. She'd never read my stuff. She didn't know anything about me. She's like, I see like a soldier. He's by you. He has blonde hair. I'm like, what? But anyway, like my muse is truly like John Carlyle. Like that character, just like when he's in my aura, in my space, like my artistic space expands and like I have a vision. So really those covers came from truly like vision that was brought to me by a muse, right? Like I don't sit here now and do artistic crap at home. Like that's not what I do at all besides write my stuff. So, I mean, trust me, there's nothing really exciting going on here, but like work and writing. But when I'm in his headspace, like there's so much vision. So I actually have to give credit to the muse, however he speaks through me. But so yeah.
He's one cheeky little bastard, that's for sure.
He is, and you're going to get to hear him. Yes, very soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, speaking of hearing it, you recently shared a teaser announcing that the reboot is also coming to audio, and listeners kind of picked up on a couple of one or two new voices there. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I do. So, you know, here's the thing. I'm going to put some caveats in here, but I'm also going to talk the exciting stuff too. So the first 3 books are now going to have the same John Carlyle through all 3 of them. So I'm not breaking any big secret here because we've already had him in The Rebel and that kind of thing. But Christopher Tester, who, if you've ever heard him or seen him soliloquy and present and do his thing on his pages, he is just so freaking fantastic. And he is taking over the role of John Carlyle. He did it in The Rebel, and now he is going to do it in The Tory, The Traitor, and The Turncoat. So, and ownership of understanding that it's just about the vision that I really wanted this character to be narrated by the same narrator in all 3 books. The saga is about, I mean, really, you've kind of figured it out, right? There's 2 main male characters in this series. There's the Rebel and the Redcoat, which is why it's the Rebels and the Redcoat saga, right? You know, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have Adam Gold. He narrates Alexei Cloudwalker. For those of you who've listened to the Rebel, if you haven't, listen. He's freaking fantastic.
So good.
Like you're missing out. And for in terms of John Carlyle, who is obviously my muse, Chris is going to be narrating him. So in the previous books, in the first 2 books, Shane East was the narrator. And then in the 3rd book, it was Cale Williams who narrated the character. Now, again, this isn't about any reflection on the previous narrations or anything. It's more, I'm updating the books right now. That was something I was doing in process. And I made the decision when I was going to do that, that I wanted to have the same narrator across the 3 books. It just, and I get it. A lot of books, people interchange, use different heroes, different people based on scheduling, what's going on in people's world, a vision, how the vision changes. But for me, this was something, because I read a saga, it's like, it would be like in the middle of Outlander, you having somebody else doing Jamie. Like, it's having a break in the
No.
middle of the series, right? And for me, that was something I felt very strongly about. I wanted the same person doing this character. But also, and this has nothing to do with fans or performances or anything, for me personally, I have a vision of how that character sounds in my head, right? Like, especially one that I'm so connected to. Like I said, he's my muse. So I really wanted a specific sound for the character. And that's not to say that the other narrators were not absolutely wonderful. I mean, they won Sovas with my work, which is incredible, and so honored to have those performances. It was more about, I was looking for, now that I'm updating it, a very specific style, right? A very specific sound. Like, these are the things I was looking for. So when I made the decision to go back and redo these and then redo the audio, I was like, okay, Trace, I want you to find the voice that fits your vision of him today, not 5 years ago in 2020 when the original Tori was done, and in 2020 also when the original Traitor was done. But it's 2025 today. I've had a different 5-year journey. Like, now I'm looking for this voice and this John Carlyle in my head. So it's actually been 2 years in the running that we've been actually over the last 3 years since I decided to reboot it. I've been looking for somebody. So spent a lot of time, did a lot of work, did a lot of researching and looking around, and consulted lots of people, and trying to find the right voice. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and also I'm a pain in the ass when it comes to this character. I'm just somebody who very much knew what my vision was, and I knew what I wanted. And the goal is not to take away from the reader's experience or to make any, to upset anybody or to change anybody's perspective of the saga or me or any of the work that was done. It's more to enhance the experience for the listener. My goal when I create my audios, because trust me, it's not easy and it's not cheap redoing these, but also the other ones were amazing and they won awards and they're so fantastic and I love them deeply. But it's to take it to the next level and give the next level of experience that I'm trying to. When I create my audiobooks, I want a movie in the mind for the reader. That's the focus. I mean, that's why I have, 15 people in the cast, right? These are big books. I'm investing a lot of money. I've got all these different voices.
Yeah.
For me, for my vision, I wanted to give the readers the best vision, the way that I see it. And so after many auditions and dialogues and conversations and talking to multiple different people, and I mean, I'm not kidding, tons of auditions and different people, and they were all amazing. Christopher was the one who really met my vision. So yeah, I recognize that there's everyone who has deep love of the other narrators, and I do too, and their work, don't get me wrong. But this is where I am. And my goal is to give you a new vision and to give you a new experience. So you get this new content, and then you have TJ, this is how she hears it in her mind when she writes it. This is how you hear it.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those where with the Tori too, it's more duet style now than it was originally.
Yes.
And so that's one of those things too, where you're having to go back and do that. I listened to your books and love Kale as John and stuff, but then I was into the Rebel, and I remember pausing my book. And that doesn't really happen unless I have to go to sleep, but especially when I'm listening to one of your books, and having to send you a DM or a text message saying, wait a minute, what is that, John Carlyle? And I was, and you're like, very much in this yeah. So I'm like, oh my God. And Chris's performance was exactly what I had envisioned based on the conversations that you and I had, which, it's preview because as friends, we have these dialogues about your characters and where your books and going and stuff like that, where the readers don't have that. So for me, knowing the things I do know, some really good stuff coming by your way, your way, guys. So listen, and to hear Christopher do it, I'm like, it's almost like I was seeing him. I was like meeting him for the first time. and seeing him exactly like you would as the author who created him, but then again, it's also Giancarlo. He's, slauntered in there telling you to write my story. So it was fantastic to when you told me about the rebooting and that was your goal. And I was like, oh yes, we get the whole Giancarlo and we get to know all this other goody stuff about all the things. And really having listeners hear him now for the first time again, totally how it was gonna, like it should have been. And we don't know what we don't know until we know. So there you go.
So you made a really good point that I forgot to bring up. Like, forgive me, it's like the middle of the day and it's been a crazy one.
Good.
But so the original Tori was done in dual narration, right? So, and dual is amazing. And I'm not going to take away from that. For the experience that I try to give my readers, duet works best. That's what I'm going to say, because I actually, when I'm not a huge, like, in terms of like how I absorb books is not potentially necessarily by audio, but when I do listen to them, I love like single narration. I love dual. I love them all. Like, they're all beautiful. But what I wanted for mine, when I decided to reboot the physical books, I wanted to go back to the Tori and turn it into a duet to match the rest of the saga. Right. But the other thing I wanted to do was keep the cast small for a reason. So the original Tori only had 4 narrators on it, right? And that was what was great about it. But the Tori, if you've read it, and if you haven't, a little bit of disclosure, it's a very small cast of story. We're kind of stuck on the frontier in the Thistle, and it's a bad snowstorm, and it's the winter time. So we don't have like the vast amount of characters that we do in the rest of the saga. This is a very small insular story as it's told. So I wanted to harken back to the original book. We have a small cast that's going to be there, not like my other very big ones, but then bring it into duet. So that I want to add. So that is also some of what predicated me also, recasting and redoing this too. So thank you.
Of course.
But yeah, it's interesting because for a reader, you hear the actor and you associate with the character. For me, it's a little harder, and every author's a little different. A lot of times you can get a narrator who immediately encompasses that voice, and you and them are symbiotic, right? Like Patrick Zeller, perfect example.
I was just going to be like Patrick
Zeller. Like, I heard his very first audition. I was like, oh, well, that guy's like perfect. There he is, right? And he's still perfect today, by the way. Just want to add that. I love Patrick Zeller. And Tara Della. I mean, the minute she opened up with her Dallas, like, I was like, does this woman know, is she in my brain? Does she? I remember the first time I heard it, because obviously, as all of you are listening to this, I talk very fast. And I have a very frenetic, excited speech pattern. And Dallas, very much when I wrote her, that has that speech pattern, right? And it was like she read that and she got it. Here's when Tracy's being slow as Dallas when she's writing her, and here's where she's just really on those words and really in the energy, and she just understood it so well. The thing is, when all of my characters either come that way, they immediately get it, or they change my perspective of the character. So the perfect example of this, and he knows this now, and I'm sure he's very cocky about it, but I love him dearly. So Adam Gold, who took on Alexi McKesson. Full disclosure, Danielle Inzerata, this is for you. Call out, shout out. I hated that character. I hated Alexi. I hated him from the Tori, and I hated him all the way till I started the Rebel. But when Adam started narrating the character, he brought this total jerk to the character, but also this incredible vulnerability and this incredible rawness to the character that I did not see. And once I heard him do it, I went, I don't see him the same anymore. And the more that he did it, and the more that I listened to him in the audio, the more that I was like, I actually kind of like Alexi, but I can't tell him that. I definitely can't tell Danielle that, because she's going to get all cheeky with me and be like, ha ha, because there was literally this long running email joke between the three of us. And Adam would be like, I know I'm not as great as John Carlyle. I understand. And to the point where I actually would call him Alexi Cloudwalker in emails. It got very confounded. But, and then eventually I admitted to him, I go, I almost like Alexi as much as John now, almost. And he felt like that was a huge lift. But that's because of his performance.
Yeah.
So I have either those things, but where John was always concerned, and I think it's because he's my muse, I'm closest to him, he's the one that leads the story. no narrator I've ever, not even them in auditions, and not even Chris in audition per se, was John in my head. It was only when I started listening to his audio clips recently, and I started doing some of my proof work, that I was like, okay, maybe this just happened, right? Like he just became him in my head. And so as I was working on the Tory and doing my edits to it, I was like, I'm like talking in Chris voice as I'm doing my, typing and stuff like that. And and then it became a whole thing. And so now he really, that was a big step for me, because
Yeah.
that was the, not only the symbiosis of him and I together, within the character, but it was also the letting go on my end too of the character, and offering that ownership up to, the next person who's creating it and taking it and doing what they want with it. And for me, that was like the last bastion of like, surrendering some of my story to somebody. So I was really, and I own that barrier. I own that barrier that I put up between myself and anybody who reads or read that character. It was very hard for me to let go, because we went on a very emotional journey together to create the first two books.
Absolutely.
So I think through the rewriting of the book and the recharactering of the character, I was finally able to let go and to surrender it to somebody and trust them. And I owned that. I had a hard time trusting the character to other people.
Yeah. Well, trust is hard. Trust is so hard. And no matter how many times you want to give up that control, that, that it provide the opportunity for someone else to take that on, these are your characters. No one is going to ever know them as good as you do, and do them justice as well. And that's one thing too, that with Chris, when you hear him doing things like the video games, and he's also done like on his socials when he does the soliloquies, and he'll even do like speeches and stuff. He's such an array of his voice range. It's just so big, from the emotional to the cocky to the ogres. It's just one of those where you kind of like rediscover the characters, even go like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, in his performance. And that's also where I think his gift truly lies, is being able to kind of just provide you with that opportunity in his performance to go, oh, well, hello, insert character name kind of thing.
It's interesting. I saw him do the first time. He would probably be like, oh my God. But the first time I ever went and looked at him, so I was recommended to him by two different narrators who directed me to go take a look at him. So two at the same time. And he did okay, I'm going to own this. I'm totally into WWE wrestling.
That's right.
Since I was, everybody knows this about me since I was a little kid until I was, we all have our guilty pleasures. I have mine. So, and he did a excerpt of Jake the Snake, which most of you probably don't know who he is unless you're old school like me. And that's the first time I saw him. I'm like, first of all, I love this guy already. Now, I didn't realize that people send him in stuff and he would read it, right? I didn't know that about him yet, but I heard him say, I'm like, well, I love this guy already. He's doing Jake the Snake. But he did this incredible, like very raw, very intelligent, interesting take on the dialogue that was originally just promo for a wrestling gig, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, I saw a video of him. He's next to himself as the video game like orc or whatever he is. And then you see him in his booth doing the same movement and like doing the orc voice. And I was like, this man is a genius. Like, this man is a genius. Now, when I think of John Carlyle originally in my head, he wasn't as like granular in his voice, and he didn't have as much of his range was different.
Yeah.
But what he could do with his voice, the imagery he could paint with his voice. I mean, you can tell the man stands when he narrates, because you can feel his movement as he's like delivering such powerful performances. I was like, this guy's amazing. And there aren't a lot of narrators and they're all fabulous, but there's some, you see them and you're just like, I got to work with this person, right? Like, I got to have them, right? And he's definitely one of those that I was like, I've got to find somewhere for him. And another narrator I felt this way about was the first time you introduced me to Don Hartley, right? Like his performances. I heard him and I was just like, I've got to work with this man. I don't know where, but we're going to find a space for him. And hence he's been my really fabulous villains, right? And just like, Patrick Zeller. So it was one of the things when I went, and then eventually we did meet up with him and we dialogued with him, and we told him what our vision was, and where I wanted to go, and that I wanted this ongoing character, and I really wanted someone to commit to it and to take ownership of it and to do the books and that kind of thing. And he was on board with it. Like, he understood that it was a reboot. He understood the history and what I was looking for, and that I wanted him to create it in his vision with mine together, and that we were redoing this. And if he had any fear, if he had any concerns, like, he didn't voice any of them. He just was like, yep, I got this. I got that. And then his cat jumped on in the video and he's like, oh, forgive that cat. Rude. She's so rude. Don't mind her. And I was like, have you met Hamilton yet? You probably should, because he's a little cheeky bastard and he'll show up in all my videos too. So it just made sense. So I'm super excited to welcome him and to have a dialogue around John Carlyle too with somebody, and to get, to hear what he thinks, because I write him as a woman, right? My muse is clearly a man, but to have a man's perspective and to get to hear what he thinks about the character as time goes on and stuff like that. So
yeah, I know. It's going to be so exciting because, like I said before, you've been here a few times, and I've had such a blast every single time. But you have yet to be on the podcast with your John Carlyle. So we're going to make that happen, and we're going to have to make sure that that's going to be one of those where, like, TJ, can we please record the video and post that too? Because I love you, but oh my God, that's going to be like brilliantly to have that dialogue with you and with Christopher there. Yeah,
But you also want to see me like all the blushing and all the turning red, because I notoriously do when I like talk, because I get so excited and everything, like,
Yeah. But some insider information too is that when we record via Zoom, and we record, each of us has a different track and things like that. And so I always tell my guests, feel free to have the cameras off, because at the end of the day, we're not really recording the video because we haven't done that kind of thing. But there's been a few times in these, these roundtables where your camera has been on and Patrick has been on, or Nicholas is, it's one of those. And especially Nicholas and Patrick have gotten you good on some of these things when it comes down to,
I think John Hartley got me good one time.
Yes, he did too. That's right. He did. I mean, heck, I remember the first time that you got on the call with us for this, and I'm seeing you react, and it was just one of those, like, I love that for you, like, to be able to kind of hang out with the individuals, because a lot of times the narrators and the authors don't meet. They don't get to have that chit chat conversation about the characters and how they go about it, but also kind of to turn and flip the table a little bit where they have questions. Like, Patrick was giving them to you the other, one of those episodes, and so was John. And it's one of those, like, okay, I just sit here and listen. So,
but what's fascinating about, so the first time, so when I did the original Tori, I had, really no involvement as much. It was really another company that had done that book, performance, that whole book, right? And so the first time I ever met Tara, Patrick, and Marnie Young was on my birthday, actually, and we were in a podcast, and that was the first time I met them. It was live, as a matter of fact, in 2020.
Yes.
And it was really cool, because I'm like, oh my God, it's weird because you have these people performing your work, and then you're also like, but who are they, right? And then technically you don't necessarily have to have that interaction, right? Like, you don't, but it is really fun. Yeah. And certainly, especially because my book's an ongoing saga. So they're the same people who are returning. Well, now it's very different. I'm, my own producer, right? I work in partnership with Danielle over at Elysian Nightfall. And so I'm directly involved, but, it was really, really cool. And I definitely turn red all the time. I blush a lot. They all know that, like, I can't handle, like, anything while I write, those very sexy scenes. I can't talk about them.
Yeah. Which of course that means that Nicholas is going to bust out with, that hammock scene. And I had to try it out with my wife, and I'm seeing her go like whoosh, like red. and I'm going, Nicholas Bolton, shame on you. But I love you.
I gotta be like, there have been so many, like, who's also really funny is Drew.
Oh my God, I love him. I love him.
He's hysterical. He comes out of left field with some stuff, and I'm just like, I didn't even realize that this, like, he's just such a funny human being. And
he's so underrated. He is so underrated. And
I'm so excited because he's back. And I can admit that. I know. So when he did Man of War, and he was Kent, young Kent in that book, and just like, like fell in love with his work in that book. I mean, truly did. And I remember when we were doing the Turncoat originally, he was like, am I going to be on this book? And I was playing with my casting and stuff like that. And I'm like, Drew, I promise you, we're going to get it back together again. So when we did the Rebel, we brought him back. And then, we brought him back into the series because I missed him so much. His energy, his humor, his work.
He's so
great.
talented, because there's a couple of times where I was like, again, I know who's in the cast. I know who's playing whom. And I still had to go to you. I think it was with Drew's performance. I'm like, this is the same dude, right? And you're like, yeah,
right.
I'm like, damn, because it was just, again, arrayness of the range is fantastic.
You know who's like that too? And I'm like, I talk about a lot about the guy, but full disclosure, Adam is like that.
Oh yeah, my God,
Sometimes
yes.
where you're like, did he do that voice? Like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
He was another one for the Rebel. I was like, but sir, you were here and then now you're there. And I, again, confirming. So dear TJ, it was
and it's funny too. There were a couple times I would message him. I'd be like, all right, Adam, like, I think you must have rage issues secretly. I'm like, because of the way that you yell so much in this scene. He would do some of them that I was just like, are you secretly manifesting like some very big anger issues? And he would just laugh at me because he's like the most easygoing, kind-hearted, friendly person in the world.
Yeah, he's so good, and so professional. I love working with him.
And then I wanted to turn around and go, wait a minute, no, the rage is mine. I wrote this stuff.
He's just showcasing what's already on the page.
Just manifesting that stuff.
I will not lie, and I sort of want to still do it. I kind of want to get all the times that he's yelling and just do a compilation. And just put it out there.
So we have a thing about the minds in that book. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts because he says mine several times in the Rebel. Okay.
Yes,
and I know, and they're all fabulous. But what you don't know is when he sent us one of the clips, there were literally like, he was wonderful. He sent us, he goes, well, you could say it this way, or you could say it this way, or you could say it this way, or you could say. So literally he sent us like 7 different minds. And Danielle and I were like, the first one, no, the second. And we were like, oh, wait, the third one. But wait, did you hear the 5th one? Oh, no, the 7th one. And like, literally we could just play a run of like 7 minds and you'd be like, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that? So, yeah, he was, and he's going to be in these. I'm going to spill a little bit of beans here. I mean,
yes,
because we can't have Alexi Cloudwalker, be anybody. Like, it's just the rule now. He has to be him. So,
yeah, I know he was very much one of those where he embodied the character in the
That's
audio.
That's a nice way of putting it. Like I changed it. Now I don't even call him Adam in emails anymore. I'm like, Alexi Cloudwalker, what are you doing? Like the one day I'm like, I understand that you're probably taking on the British right now on the St. Lawrence, but I need you to do this for me, can you? And he'll reply back, well, actually I was. And it's fabulous.
Yeah.
And he's just humoring the crazy author on the other end, who's just now so associated. But, it's very funny that you say that because it's rare that you can give a character to someone and they can completely like change your vision of them. But one of the new narrators coming in the new Tory Trader and Turncoat changed my vision of another character too. I can't spill those beans just yet because that's going to go live in the casting announcement.
Yes.
But it's a she was given a high order to take over, and she reimagined the character in such a brilliant way. So more to come on that. And I'm super excited because her work Danielle the other day was like, this is such an interesting reimagination. And not that the original wasn't brilliant, but it truly was. So it takes somebody also equally as brilliant to reimagine something as well. So
it can be hard sometimes on recasting because from a listener's perspective, let alone from an author's perspective too, when the characters are, you've worked with them for so long kind of thing. And as a listener, the argument always is the whole like, oh, but why do you gotta go change them? Because I love them like this. And it's just one of those where we're like, trust me, it's a hard decision. It did not come lightly. And now when you hear the updated version, you're going to be like, oh, I understand now the why.
And understand that. So business is tough, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot of things that go into casting, and I see a lot of debates going on threads in different places about this, and I don't comment. And there are two sides to the story. Like, I am always mindful of my fan base. I understand their deep love and their connection to these incredible actors and voices, and understand anyone that I bring onto my product. I develop a love for them, whether I know them very well or whether I'm close to them, and I have a deep love for their performance, and I have a deep respect for my fans and them loving specific performances. And it doesn't offend me or hurt me or anything if you're like, no, I love this one better, or I feel this. Like, I understand that. Trust me, I have those kind of feelings about people that I listen to, and actors in movies and different things like that. Like, I understand that. And then there's the business aspect of it, where you're an author who is dealing with scheduling, obviously, is the very easy thing. Sometimes people they don't work well together, and that's not a personality thing. It's not a reflection on either one. I don't like my husband every day. Like, that happens,
He knows that. All husbands know that.
And that's not a reflection but the truth is, it's not a reflection on people. Sometimes it's just the chemistry isn't there between people. There's also the component of, I've got a vision and I'm trying to deliver it in the purest form to my reader. And as you know this about me, I'm very much about, my book is my art form in its purest form, but my audio is also very much mine in its purest form. That's why I'm producing it with somebody, because I want the purest version. If this is going to be my medium with my name, with my story out there, I want it delivered the way that I want it to be. So those are decisions that you make. And I understand the fans hurt. Now, can I speak for every other author who casts or recasts? No, it could be a lot of different things. It could be they may not own the rights to their book. It might be a casting decision based on scheduling. It could be a casting decision based on vision, right?
Yeah, there's so many variables. I mean, the list can go on and on. My thought process is, I'm trusting the author. I am trusting the process.
Or the producer, right?
Yeah.
Or the producer. And here's the thing, you have a right to have an opinion and a feeling. This may not be for me, but understand that what went into business, you're not privy to. You don't really know. And there's a lot of reasons that do. But what I will say for myself, for anybody listening, is that for me, it's truly about bringing my vision to you in the purest form. So it's met with as much love for the reader and listener as I can possibly give, but also with as much respect to the people doing the acting. I want to make them look the best and sound the best they possibly can. Because my goal is to make they're interpreting my work. We're working together, but they're artists too. They have these fabulous voices, and I want them to sound the best. I want them to match the best. I want this beautiful orchestra of sound to come together for you. So I'm listening on all these levels for those things. And if it's not matching up, if it's not working, then I'm not giving you what I'm trying to deliver. So that's part of it too.
Yeah. I've listened to bits and pieces of the updated version, and I'm so excited. And I'm like reminding myself a couple of times a day that I'm like, I can't bug you to give me the book early or give me what you got, because it's just
I've been elbowing Danielle too.
Yeah.
I've been like, Danielle, so I got her so good today. I'm like, you're such a tease. She sends me like 8 chapters and then disappears for like half the day. I'm like, family, you don't have kids. You're supposed to give me the rest of them chapters. I need to listen. So she gets me like it's like a cliffhanger in my own story. And then she's like, okay, Trace, you're going to need to take a couple breaths in the middle of this scene. I know you. And I'm like, she's like, you're going to need to breathe this one off. And so we had this hysterical moment last night, Viv. You're going to die when you hear this.
Oh, goodness.
So she says to me, she goes, Tracy, you really need to listen to your sex scenes one of these days. Like, you really need to. She goes, they're well done and they're acting them so beautifully. I'm like, oh my God, please. I'm like, here's the problem. I really do want to listen, but the problem is I someone has to sit on me and tie my hands down, literally. I said, she goes, you're never going to listen. I'm like, maybe when I'm on my deathbed 40 years from now. I'm like, so when I'm like 90, I'll call Adam and be like, Adam, that was fabulous. I mean,
no. Danielle, we have to plan this where we go and hang out with TJ and we make the cozy, and we just make sure that she has her favorite drinks with her. She's had a good day, and then we'll just be there for her. But we are gonna have to do this because her reaction would just be epic. epic.
Well, and the funny thing is like, so I was talking to a male narrator friend of mine today, and I'm like, do you mind if I ask you a question? He's like, yeah, anything. I'm like, so when you go in the booth to read a sex scene, do you just go, okay, here we go? Do you go, all right, once more into the breach? Do you go, that doesn't really happen? Or do you, I mean, what do you do? Like, how do you handle this? I said, because as an author, I'm like, this is like, there's some dude I don't know reading my stuff, right? And like, he was so amazing about it. He goes, well, it's not about me. He's like, it's about me bringing the vision to life. He goes, a lot of times I don't know the author. I don't know who I'm reading. I don't have a perspective of them. I don't know anything about them. He goes, but what I do know is I am the conduit to the reader's experience. And I don't want to take the reader out of their experience. This is how would this man react in this moment? So this is the wording they've given me. This is the description they've given me. Now I've got to convey it to the reader. And I'm like, wow, that was so beautifully said. But no, seriously, do you ever say, what the heck are they saying?
Well, I mean, the listeners are, there's a thought process as far as, some of the readers sometimes get in the crossing lines when it comes down to those particular scenes and kind of think that that's how the narrator sounds in real life, if in their own activities. And the reality is we've had some of that dialogue on the podcast because it's very important to differentiate and not ever cross any lines. And sometimes, unfortunately, some readers don't and understand the same concept or on the same page or in the same atmosphere sometimes. And they do cross those lines. And it's important, I think, that this is a performance. This is not real life. This is not how really things happen. And there are times too where some of these characters are aliens and they're orgs and they have additional appendages. And
I don't have any of those in mind.
No, you don't.
Thank God.
No. John Carlyle does not need any of those things. Thank you very much. But again, it's a performance that they're providing us, give us, to continue the story. The majority of the times, because it's a human act, it's human nature. As a person, I will still have those same how are they reading my stuff, regardless of what the scene is? Because again, that's an art form. It's part of who you're giving yourselves and stuff like that. So, but yeah, you're not the only one that thinks about that when it comes down to the sex.
There's a level of intimacy. And now every author, like I can't speak for any author. When I write a character, and again, I write very specifically from both counseling and from the muse and what he delivers to me. Danielle and I laugh about this many times because John Carlyle has this things with sex and food. Like they always end up in conversations together. And it's not something that I think about. It has nothing to do with me. That's just the character when I'm in his voice, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's just him. That's his muse, right? But it's interesting because when you go deep into character and muse, at least for myself, I call it like method writing, if that's such a thing, where I'm so deep in their head, this is where they are in the scene, right? So when it's being interpreted by someone else, there's like 6 degrees of separation, right? And now you've got somebody else in that space and you're like, it's almost like letting somebody else into the room with you, right? So for me, there's that piece of it, right? And I'm not a very timid person, full disclosure, but there's that piece of it. But then there's also he's going to be totally laughing at me. But the truth is that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
And again, this friend of mine so eloquently tried to set my mind at ease. I'm like, nope, that didn't help.
Well, at least he tried.
And it was so thoughtful the way that he did it, and he was so wonderful about it. I go, nah, it still makes me cringe. So Danielle, she will laugh at this when she gets time to listen to it. But the truth is that she'll be like, Trace, you're going to need to go breathe this one off. And I actually have what I call my consult service, my sex scene consult service now, where I reach out to them. I'm like, I have a scene for you. Can you please consult on this? And the funny thing is, so they'll text back and forth, Danielle and this individual, and I'll always be on the chain. They'll be like, oh, dude, she can't listen to this. I definitely can't listen to this one. No, wish you could listen to this, Trace, because it's really good, but nope, you can't listen to this. And it's going back and forth. I'm like, would you two just shut up? Just don't include me. Don't include me. It's definitely... Yeah, all the things. Sex scenes I still struggle with those.
I've spoken to many an author and many who have been writing for 20 plus years, and they will do the insert sex scene now here kind of thing and get back to it because they just can't. They're like, I will do this later. I can't. So it's a common thing. And it's interesting how for me, it's just fascinating from the psychology of it, how everybody kind of handles that differently, but at the same time, it's not that different how everybody handles it. It's just fascinating. But yeah, I can't wait. So we can go on and on and on and on and on about this,
Right.
especially Mr. And John Carlyle would not be upset about that
No,
whatsoever.
not at all.
and to some extent, neither would Alexei.
No, it's interesting. Those two are so similar yet so different in that way.
Yeah.
But yes, any man likes when they're being talked about, right?
Right. True. But okay, so now we know this is happening and this is coming, but we haven't really talked about the when. So when do we get to read and earbud listens to all this stuff, all the goodies?
So well, the physical book version of the Tory is done. It is in formatting right now. So the goal is end of August. So there's always a little bit of wiggle time, basically, by getting things up on Audible and getting things, on Amazon. That's right. So getting things up on Amazon in terms of the physical book. And then once the actual audiobook is recorded, it will not be going up in Audible. As a matter of fact, it will be going on my website and wide everywhere else on other platforms, just not Audible. But ultimately, we're looking end of August, very beginning of September for the Tory. Then behind that, very end of October, beginning of November, right around there for the Trader. And then very quickly after that in December, we will have the Turncoat, because that actual one was the first one we recorded. So because it was the one that really we didn't do any rewrite on it per se, because it had already been rewritten. We were just, redoing the audio for that one. So that's the timeline for everything. So just to talk about where it's going to be available, the only audio that is going to be available will be Man of War. That will be on Audible. The rest are going to go wide everywhere and on my website.
Yes.
The original versions of the Tory and the Trader and the Turncoat that are there currently, if you own them, my recommendation is download them and save them off of Audible. If you love them, please do that. You've purchased them, you love them, buy them, because they are going to go away.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be an anniversary edition. There's not going to be like, oh my gosh, look what she brought out of the attic. They are going away. They're done. They're gone. So if you love them or if you're curious about them, please, pick them up. They are available on Audible right now, but they will be going away. Yeah. So.
And Man of War will be will be on Audible solely for the purpose of potentially getting new readers that using the platform to discover the series and stuff like that. Guys, if you do want these audiobooks, the best way to honestly get them is directly from the author. I'm a huge supporter of authors direct selling their books, audio and ebooks and even paperbacks directly from the websites. They get the royalties completely. And so they're getting their return on investment. We're supporting them 100%. And at the same time, usually they get them first. So, the authors will put them first on their website. And then, so we get them there. And then everybody else like Kobo and B and Barnes and Nobles and all the other places will have to wait. So for individuals like myself that don't like to wait, definitely get them directly from the website.
Yes, they will go first.
Yeah.
They will go first to my website, and then they will go to the sites wide. Absolutely. And then certainly, like I said, there's a lot of care and love that goes into doing these, truly. And then I'm doing them a second time right now. So there's a lot of care and love that's gone into them. So please, but I understand everybody, has their platforms where they choose to get their stuff from. So we are going to go wide everywhere. Yeah. But it's really about supporting not only myself, but the voice actors too. And, the use of live voices and human voices, right? And also as well as human authors. I am a deep supporter both of, my friends who are in the, with the big three and who are with publishers, as well as my fellow friends who are independent publishers. We are the artists and we need to support each other. And so I'm a big supporter of my fellow voice actors that I employ currently, for my work. So, and they have been so gracious and supported me and my fellow authors who are also creating content. So that's what this is really all about. So
as well. Yeah, no, it's great. And so once we have all that info, we are going to be sharing it all over the place. So you guys don't have to worry about that. If you guys are not subscribed to her newsletter, I would. She tends to give things first there, and also sometimes things that she doesn't share publicly on her socials. So it's the place to be.
Yes.
Join the revolution.
And obviously, And obviously, with new reboots coming, there's going to be new stories coming later, as well as, I don't know, Viv keeps bugging me about doing some kind of special edition for like the hardcovers and stuff like that. You keep bugging me about
I
it.
do, because your books are so gorgeous as it is, but I can also imagine having like special limited editions with like
I'm
the
thinking,
hardback and some spray edging and some maybe extra goodies that come along with it that are only there for like a limited time. So yeah, I'm all for that. I'm still working on it, folks. Okay.
you've been elbowing me for a while, so I'm thinking that's a thing, right?
Not me looking at vendors already for spray edging and other things, right? No.
And the truth is, like, I've got to be really honest with you. I'm so excited about this reboot of the Tory. Like, I'm so excited. This book is really special for me. It was a very, very, very special. So I want to do something really unique for it. So something's going to come for it. And then we're going to move towards obviously having signed copies available there if people are interested in them.
Oh, yeah.
Opening up my store more through that. And then also the places that, I'm going to be doing some signings coming in the future, and then all those good things. So the website will have all that stuff.
Yeah, she has a lot of good stuff planned and some things that she doesn't know about yet that will be planned.
That's amazing. I'm all right with it.
I know. So I cannot wait for her to be able to share everything with you guys. But that's a wrap on this episode of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. TJ, thank you again so much for joining and giving us a behind-the-scenes look of the reboot of the Rebels and Redcoats saga. Cannot wait for the listeners, both the longtime fans and the new readers, to dive into this fresh, refreshed journey. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
As always, you can find the links to TJ's books, past episodes, and more information on the show notes over and on our website. So until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookloving. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.